Welcome back to The Digital Dilemma, the podcast where we cut through the noise and talk about what technology actually means for your business. I'm Nick Dreyfus, Vice President of Business Development at iNet. And today we're tackling a topic that has every business owner, every employee, and honestly, every person paying attention to the headlines asking the same question. Is AI coming for my job? The short answer, it depends on who you ask. The vendors, they're going to tell you that AI can do everything. The fear mongers will tell you it already has. And the truth is, as usual, it's somewhere in between and way more interesting than either side wants to admit. Now, today I do have a guest who lives in the gap between the hype and the hard work every single day. Bryant. He is the founder of RapidShift AI, an AI automation agency that helps small businesses actually harness the power of AI to streamline their daily operations and get time back to focus on growth. He's not selling the dream, he is building the reality. Now, before launching RapidShift AI, spent years at Cisco with deep expertise across security, networking, and infrastructure. And if you know this space, you know that combination, it's very rare. He brings a real ability to take what a business actually needs and translate that into technical architecture that works. He has seen every hype cycle in tech for the last 15 plus years. And he has a very clear perspective on where AI actually stands today versus where the sales pitch says it does. Now, Al, welcome to The Digital Dilemma.
Thank you for having me, Nick. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, Al, we landed on this title, The Replacement Myth, and I think it's important to start with why. Everyone from copywriters to coders to customer service reps is absolutely terrified. If AI is so powerful, why do you say that it actually needs us more than we need it?
Yeah, I think, first of all, like you said, the key word of replacement is just, it's a little bit of fear mongering, and myth is appropriate too, because I think personally that it is a myth as well. I don't think AI is capable of, nor do I think it's really intended to replace us and what we really do and what we really bring to the table. Now, there are some tasks that are really, static and really easy to automate that maybe AI can do. But when it comes to any real level of actual intelligence and being able to understand context and situations, AI is not going to be able to do that. So when someone says that it needs us more than we need it, I think that's speaking to, number one, it's trained on us and our own intellect and modeled after who we are. And the model's never going to be as good as the original. That's just how it goes with all things. And then I think it's useless unless we use it. So it's not like it's on the shelf just doing its own thing. Sure, you can have autonomous agents, but it's still up to us to decide how, when, and where we actually leverage it. So I think it's still going to heavily rely on us, and it's not going to replace us. It should be empowering us, and I think that's how people should see it, as a tool, not a.
Yeah, augmenting, enhancing us as a society, not replacing us. I completely agree with that statement. So as we get into the next question, we see companies rushing to cut their headcount and replace teams with bots. From your perspective at RapidShift, where are those companies 6 months later, and what breaks first?
So, I've seen companies, small businesses try to do this, and I've seen large enterprises try to do this. And ultimately what ends up happening is they have to backtrack. They get a little too far ahead of themselves. Some executive or some higher up has kind of made promises just based on hype. And I think they fall into the same hype trap that everyday consumers can fall into. They're still people at the end of the day. And without having a set of experience and knowledge about these tools, they're going to make missteps. And I think that's what happens. They get a little too excited and they start taking for granted the skills that people have. Going back to the replacement myth, I think some executives, some businesses, and some business owners have that misconception too, and they try to go along with it and actually replace their workers, and they soon find out, wait a minute, this actually cannot do what, my guy did, who was here for 10 years and understands the customers and the relationships and understands the seasons, even depending on what business you're in, right? Like, AI may not understand that. So I think businesses are making that mistake, and they're just kind of jumping the gun. And I think that's when we get into, like, when we consult with businesses, we always say start with these like small tasks, but impactful, right? It can be small, and still be very valuable as far as giving you time back, as far as making sure your customers are satisfied or whatever the use case you're solving for. So I think people just have to be really careful not trying to, what I would say, boil the ocean and start letting people go when you haven't even kind of gotten comfortable with human oversight, no less removing that human oversight and trying to replace people.
Yeah, well, I mean, a great point to that is one of my mentors says all the time, you can't lead with customer service being your, what you stand for, because if you're not good at customer service, you're going to be out of service. And I think that's what's going to break first is the customer service look and feel. And when it gets too generic and people aren't actually able to voice their opinions, and it's interesting, we find it all the time. Someone buys a product and that's not what the original intended use was for. How is AI going to handle that completely crazy use case? Now you've made someone who was a fan and loved your product and maybe could have got you into a totally different market that you didn't even know existed. And now you've just made them mad for whatever reason because you just did generic support. So great points, Al. Thank you for that. So when was the last time you used ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and it gave you an answer, but it was actually wrong? Why is that replacement theory still here and why?
Yeah, I think number one, so all these companies, the Chat GPTs, Open AIs, the Googles, the Anthropics, all these owners of these frontier models, they want you to still believe that same hype because it helps their bottom line that these systems are really, really intelligent and are improving because they're releasing models almost every 2 weeks at this point, right? But what we're seeing, they're not actually getting better. That kind of return on investment is starting to kind of plateau just a little bit. But more to your point, I don't think I actually get answers that are completely wrong anymore. But I think some of that is because I'm using prompt engineering techniques that kind of say things like, don't give me statistics without giving me a source that I can literally click on and go verify for myself where this data is coming from. Whenever I'm asking for anything statistical, anything numerical specifically, I want cited sources. Anything that I'm going to carry forward as far as research or to my end customers, whatever the case may be, I'm going to want verified sources for everything. And I think that right there reduces the hallucinations that you're speaking to. But I also think I have a keen eye for like understanding that sounds a little too on the nose and challenging AI itself. So it still can give you things completely wrong, but I think the better you get with it, the less you see that. But I do want to just set the right expectations. People should always expect and assume that what it's telling you is not fully accurate. I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah, I completely agree because just yesterday I was in one of the big three, right? I mean, there's more, but one of the big three, and I asked it for, help me construct this email, using all my prompts. And I said the meeting is tomorrow at 11, and this was yesterday, and it said tomorrow was Wednesday, and today is not Wednesday. It's definitely Friday, right? So the system didn't even consult a calendar to figure out what tomorrow was, which is just interesting that it still gets those little things wrong. And you can't just type something in and then expect the answer to be always right and then just roll with it if you're not paying attention. So humans need to be involved.
Yeah, you just said something that made me think like one of the things that I tell people, customers and just, everyday people when they're thinking about this and they're like, "Oh, AI is so stupid. It's not helpful. It says something wrong." I'm like, "Have you met people?" Right.
Yeah,
So this is mimicked
not
after
going to
our
work.
intelligence. Hey, I'm sure there have been days where you've forgotten what day of the week it is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I think people just have to have these realistic expectations that again, it's mimicking human intelligence and we make mistakes as humans. So it's going to continue to making mistakes. And I think that's just a reality we have to live with. And we got to focus on the value that we can get out of it and not harp on where it's imperfect because really we're moving the goalposts as society. Right. Five,
Absolutely.
6 years ago, this would have been amazing. Now it's just like, oh, it's cool, but we
Absolutely.
want more. It's cool, we want more.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's
cool, but we
wrong.
want more. Yeah.
So now you used an analogy that AI is like a talented but not experienced intern. I do love that. Can you unpack that and what specific human element and context and empathy, even the judgment, what is AI simply not going to be able to replicate right now?
I think the biggest piece is actual creativity. And I don't mean like paintings and music, because it can do that to some degree today. But I mean creative like problem solving and creative and critical thinking, especially when it comes to dealing with dynamic things like customer relationships. It's not going to understand the personality of the audience person or the executive that you're writing that report for. It's not going to understand what landmines to avoid. Like they may be triggered by certain words. Like this might sound trivial to some people, but I've worked with executives where before we bring in somebody else to speak to them, we have a pre-briefing and we say, hey, do not say this word, do not mention this technology because it will send us down a rabbit hole and the rest of the meeting will be off the track and it won't go well. So AI is just not going to understand really that level of situational awareness. Sure, there are some prompt engineering techniques you can use to give it a lot of context, but it's still not going to be able to make that judgment call. So you're never going to be able to just take what it's giving you and run with it. And that's where it becomes your job, as you would any mentor, to treat it like an intern and review what it's outputting and how it's working and put your layer of expertise and understanding of the situation on top of that and fine tune it before you deliver that to, the final audience or whoever it's intended for.
Absolutely. It is. But just like we're talking about how this isn't enhancing any one person, it is not a replacement, and we just don't see that. Anybody else that's telling you that is hype, 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 because I see all these vibe coders and they're like, man, look what I did over a weekend. And then you find out how much time they didn't sleep over that weekend. You're like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at code too. I've built website 10 years ago. I built websites over a weekend too. I mean, yeah, yours was maybe a little more elaborate, but we didn't even have half the tools you have. So yeah, I don't, what did you really save? Great that you're passionate, but I don't know if that's much different.
Yeah.
So next question is, here's where it gets interesting with the latest data that Goldman Sachs, they just published research showing AI has already displaced roughly 16,000 US jobs per month. But here's the part nobody's talking about. It's entry-level workers getting hit the hardest, meaning the experienced workers and AI exposed fields are actually seeing their wages go up. So the Dallas Fed confirmed the same pattern. AI can replicate textbook knowledge, but it can't replicate the judgment and build over that 10 to 20 years of experience that someone does have. Where does that tell us, or what does that tell us about who is really at risk here, if anything?
I honestly think the data is pretty on the nose from what I've been seeing, and other data sources have reported similar findings. And that's that those entry level jobs are the ones that are at most risk. But one thing that I want to call out is when people say jobs are being displaced, there's two parts to that. Sure, those entry level jobs may no longer be relevant and they may become redundant, but there are going to be a whole other set of jobs that are created because of AI, right? Now you have people who have to think about building AI systems, and you have even prompt engineering for some roles is actually a job. You can go on LinkedIn right now and find people looking for people with experienced prompt engineering to be able to get the best usage out of these tools. So I say that to say it's going to remove some jobs, but it's also going to create some. And I've seen some studies by like the World Economic Forum that say it's going to create more jobs than it has made redundant. And we see this type of pattern repeated over history when it comes to the classic analogy of, cars coming when there were horse-drawn carriages. What's going to happen to all the horse breeders and all the people who sell hay and all the blacksmiths who make horseshoes? Well, now you need mechanics. You need people that make tires. You need people that pump gas. Right now, the jobs just shift. So I think there is a little bit of silver lining there, but it is a little different in that these jobs today are going to require more of an education, and that can be a challenge from just an access perspective. So there are going to be certain demographics who are frankly more at risk.
As you say that, I love the theory that me being from Gen X and I think all the generations opposite Gen Z is going to outprompt all of us. They
Yeah.
learn faster. They understand the technology better. They've been living in this world just like when we were kids. We out interneted all of our, predecessors, right? And we would, it would half the time it was, okay, Uncle so and so, give me your phone. Ugh, you do it like this, right? I mean, all of us remember that, and this is just the same. The youth are what's going to then take these companies to the next level. So I think it's absolutely crazy that people are like, let's get rid of all the remedial jobs, and now Gen Z has nowhere to work, when those are probably the people that are going to make your prompts amazing. They're going to build your company and make it something truly amazing overnight. Whereas we didn't grow up with prompt engineering. We don't have that youthful essence that is inquisitive and just kind of plays with stuff, we learned that technology differently. Not saying we're not doing a good thing, millennial, Gen X, and boomer, but they're probably 3 times better at this than we are as a combined collective. Love that takeout.
One classic phrase, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And
Yeah.
and,
I
and
mean,
that,
we can
you
try to
can, but it's hard.
pick, but nah, yeah, that's probably maybe the name of the episode. Now, going back to thinking about your own daily work, what's the one task that where you were to rely purely on gut feeling or a relationship that you've built over the years, that is the data or set AI can't have? What would that be?
I think that was supposed to be one I should turn around for you and
Oh
ask
yeah, good point.
you that question.
Yeah, if you're asking me, I mean, honestly, having the real conversations with people once they've been quote unquote vetted, because me being in sales, I think the biggest thing is trying to find, and I don't want to waste someone's time who they're looking for something maybe very different than what we're doing at iNet. I'm wasting their time having a 15, 20, 30 minute, Zoom call with them. But once there's that level of they're inquisitive at what we're doing, for me to quickly adapt that conversation to exactly what that business owner has, that based on their vertical, based on how long they've been in business, based on all these different factors, the knowledge that we have as humans that I've now collected over the last 30 plus years of being in this industry, it's irreplaceable, that we can't put into hard context. It would just take too long. But what are your thoughts on that? What are your daily tasks that you just don't think it's happening anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to that people dynamic, kind of similar to what you're saying, understanding personalities, understanding when, for example, one of my customers may ask me a question that they ask one question, but I know what they're really getting after, and it's not really the question that they asked, right? Or it might be a leading question. So if you go to and try to use AI for that kind of thing, it's going to be very straightforward. It's going to be very literal. And that's not always the way it works. And that's where it comes back to the human capabilities, that human connection. I understand how this guy thinks. I understand how he moves. I understand the landmines that he's stepped on before. So I know really what he's asking, why he's asking it. So I'm going to be much better suited to actually answer that type of question than I am just copying and pasting his email into AI and saying, hey, answer this for me. It's not going to have that kind of awareness and that kind of understanding of the personalities and the
Totally.
human dynamics.
Yeah, I think, and you said that well, and that kind of leads us into the next question of, let's dispel the fear and get practical. If I'm an expert in any field, let's say a senior accountant or a veteran marketer, 20-year IT professional, how does my role change today because of AI? And how do I stop competing with AI and just start managing it? Maybe help it enhance me. What are those steps right now?
For me, I think the biggest thing people can do first is you can use AI for a lot. The question becomes, should you use AI? And the answer is not always yes, as people want to try to cram AI into everything, fit a square peg into a round hole all the time. It doesn't always work. For me, the way I really got proficient and better at using AI when I started seeing value was when I would use AI to help me strategize on how to use AI itself, how to strategize my business processes or my approach to a customer. So versus using it for tactical things, using it for more strategy, more of a sounding board, giving me ideas on an approach. And then I can break those down into smaller steps, smaller goals, smaller outcomes. And then I might go into an AI tool and leverage it. But I would just say people who are professionals in these environments, you have to use it almost as a sounding board. And again, you still have to heavily rely on your own experience. I don't think it's going to be able to replicate or replace that. It's going to be generally good at everything, but it's not going to have the deep level expertise that you're going to have if you've been doing something for 10 plus years. There's no way it just can't. It just can't understand those dynamics.
Yeah. So going to the next question, which is, if you gave a tool today that did 80% of your boring admin work, scheduling, basic emails, data sorting, would you feel replaced, or would you feel unleashed to do the creative work you actually like?
I would feel unleashed, kind of like my previous answer, like how I use it in my day job is I use it to do the things that used to take me 30 minutes, but not because it was difficult. Well, it's just because I had to go I had to go Google for the website. I had to filter through the website, do a control find to find the piece of text I'm looking for, right? So a task that's relatively simple doesn't mean it's quick. So that's where I've started seeing, okay, I do this. I can answer this customer in 5 minutes because I understand how to ask the question because I do have experience. So I understand they ask me one question. I know how to go ask AI the question in a way that's going to get me the answer I need much, much faster. And then I can go back to, okay, I answered that one operational question. Then I can go back to drawing out the strategy and the next 2 to 3 year roadmap that I really want to discuss with this customer and have a more higher level conversation with them versus getting stuck in the mundane tactical type of work. So that's just my personal take. I feel unleashed. I feel like I have more time to do that type of thing and be more strategic versus tactical, which we all can get kind of wrapped around the axle, if you will.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a great point, and I think making sure that we are fully transparent with what it can and cannot do is the biggest thing. Because I think my biggest point, and the reason why I wanted to have this session, is talking about how put yourselves in OpenAI, Anthropic, or any of these companies' shoes. Your job is to sell that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? So they're going to tell you absolutely everything you want to hear. And oh my gosh, this mythos thing. And here's a maybe a first tip that nobody's even thought of. If you want my opinion on mythos, from what I'm hearing and everybody that I trust and respect that understands what it's doing, it's a bug bounty program. It's really good at finding bugs. So just like previous, like Nano Banana was great at images, if you asked it to make you a recipe, it's probably not going to do it very well. So great that Mythos is great at finding and being a bug bounty program by itself, but it's not going to, they're hyping it like it's this all inclusive thing. But what they forget to tell you is, yeah, it's really great at this one little teeny thing. And I think that's what we have to focus on. So a final thought before we get to the fun stuff, which is the final question. If you could put up a billboard for every single employee worried about their job right now, what would that say?
Huh. That's a good
Good
one.
one, right? Yeah.
I got to think about that one, Nick. Oh my God. If I could put
Let's
a
come back to that. That's fine. I love that dynamic. I was trying to think of a good one from last night myself, but I would think for me it would probably be something along the lines of AI's not replacing us. It's greatly enhancing us and allowing us to live the lives we want.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I guess I would say something like AI is not here to replace you, it's here to help you reclaim your time.
Yeah,
That's what I
love
would
that.
say.
Love that.
That's
Love
what I would.
that. To the final part here, this is where we get to push back, right? Push back on you slightly. The technology is getting better at a theoretical exponential rate. Again, going back to the vendors who have everything to gain to tell you, oh, you wait until what's going to come out in June and December. And oh my gosh, is it exponential? I don't know that there's proof. I think the proof is it's 1 to 5% better right now, maybe every month, maybe every quarter, really. Sure, it needs us now, but what about in 5 years? What about 10 years? What is your outlook, and how does the human stay relevant in that scenario, as you explained earlier, the talented but inexperienced intern, and how it eventually sobers up and gets to be smarter, like potentially a PhD?
Honestly, I don't think that it does in the general sense. So when most people ask this question, they're thinking about these general LLMs like Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT. Now, you may have more domain specific, greatly fine tuned, maybe in medical research, or maybe in financial services, or maybe in manufacturing. Those probably can get to a PhD level, but it's still going to be super limited. And I think the limiting factor is really right now it's a couple of different limiting factors that are really, really important. Number one, the biggest one that AI needs, that's data. We're limited on the amount of data that we can provide to these systems because we're limited on the amount of data that we have. Sure, you can scrape the entire internet and you will get a lot of information. But when it comes to replicating the human intelligence at a scale like this across different domains, that still is going to at some point have diminishing returns. The other part is the power, right? The power and memory that these things require is absolutely massive. So to keep growing them with the current architectures, it becomes really non-feasible. Really, right now, it's getting to that point. That's why you have the memory shortages right now that are affecting all industries that need any type of memory or any type of storage.
Yeah,
We're seeing that across the
great
board.
point.
Yeah. And the last thing I would just say is just philosophically thinking about this, They're primarily based on language today. Our language in itself is inherently limited. There are things that you can look at me and not say a word, Nick, and you can give me certain expressions, and I'll know what you're thinking.
right?
So there's certain
Cues.
right that it will just not have access to. So being based on language itself already sets a ceiling. Now that ceiling might be high, but when you're talking about machines, it's not that high. So I think that the architectures as we know them today will have to shift in some way for these to really get exponentially better than they are today. I think we're already hitting some of these limits, but I just don't think these companies are going to be willingly telling you that.
I love that theory and I love that perspective because I think you're 100% right. I mean, we're already starting to see the cracks in the AI and these big developers that they were thinking that they were going to get billions and billions and billions from the public sector, and that's not happening. So now they're all chasing enterprise, and enterprise is like, you got this pro license for 20 bucks. Why am I spending this other one? Why would I do that? So I think, they're definitely in this conundrum right now. And I think, that's definitely a great topic for future. But Al, this has been exactly the conversation I was hoping for. Real talk, real data, no hype. I appreciate you bringing everything up that we did. And I think it was an excellent session. Hope to have you back. Now, for everyone listening, here's a key takeaway. AI is not coming for good humans. It's coming for the tasks that never needed a human in the first place. The question is not whether you will be replaced. The question is whether you're going to lead the change or get caught watching it happen. So if you want to connect with Al, check out RapidShift AI at RapidShift AI. And Al, where else can everybody follow along with the good work you're doing?
So you can email me directly, first of all, if you have questions or want me to, speak or anything like that, al.bryant at rapidshift.ai. You can also go to my main website, rapidshift.ai. I'm pretty active on TikTok. You can find me there at albryant.tech. That's where I just post my thoughts and keeping up with not like news, but just some high level topics and seeing trends in the industry and addressing those in a real layman's term type of way. So those will be my primary ways of contacting me. I am also on Threads, which is basically the Instagram, Twitter at al.bryant.tech as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Al. It was really great. And if you are a business owner trying to figure out how to actually implement AI without risk, without that hype, and you're going to see a real strategy, and we would love to have that conversation. You can book a call directly in that link in the show notes. This has been The Digital Dilemma. I am Nick Dreyfus, and we'll see you on the next one.